Hi, I'm Mike Elston, Executive Chef at Mount Carmel Grove City Hospital. Today I'm going to show you how to make tomato zucchini egg bake. We start out with a mise en place with everything in its place, and that's all the ingredients and all the utensils, which I have gathered here. Our first item that we're going to prepare is dicing an onion. I have a chef knife, and I'm going to start out by cutting off the end of the onion that doesn't have the root attached. I have a container to put my scraps in so I can make a chinois later on if I want to, which is a bag that can hold these items in it, and you can then place it into a sauce to add flavor to it and remove it later on. A coffee filter can also be used as an item to hold those items when you do that. To get the skin off of the rind off of the onion, I cut a slit through the first layer of the onion, going down both sides, and then I can get my finger or my fingernail up underneath it to peel it back. And some onions at the store, you can buy these already pre-peeled. They just cost a little bit more money. I personally like to have the outer edge on it. It protects the onion during shipment. And I can also see what the onion looks like without that on it to know that the inside is going to be good. All right, we're going to dice this into 1/4 inch pieces. So I'm going to cut through the root of the onion down to the bottom. Set that off to the side. This section, I'm going to score through the onion, and I'm going to go across the length of the onion, starting from the heel of my knife to the tip, and just let the weight of the knife as I'm pulling back through, cut through the onion. And I'm doing about a 1/4 inch slice in width as I'm doing this. Then going across the grain, I can do the 1/4 inch slice right here. And you can see it's the right shape that we want for our dish today. And I'm also curling my hand back like a claw, so I don't have my fingers out where the blade is or my thumb. Doing the same with the second half. And then curl my hand back like a claw. And it's not about speed, it's about safety and having equal sized pieces for your dish. Our next item will be zucchini. The zucchini, you want medium-sized zucchinis. At the store, sometimes they'll be really small, but we want to have 1.5 pounds of zucchini. I've already washed these ahead of time, so we're ready to start cutting these up. And we're going to cut these into 1/2 inch dice size. I'm going to cut the end off at the bottom and the end off at the top. Those are too tough to eat. And I can make this into a more manageable size. This is pretty long. So I'm going to cut it in half again, set that off to the side. And then these 2 halves, I'll cut them in half. And now we're ready to cut it into the 1/2 inch size. Curling my hand, well, not curling my hand, but reaching over the knife, I can then cut straight down, holding the item in place so I don't cut myself. Now I'm ready to cut it into the 1/2 inch dice going across the zucchini. It's okay if it pops out, as long as you can still hold it in your hand. Curl my fingers back like a claw so I don't cut myself. I have a neighbor that has a small garden in his backyard, and every year he gives me zucchini. So I have to be creative with it. A lot of people like to make zucchini bread with it, which is a good way if you have kids to get their veggies in them. It hides it inside that. You can also use it in soups. It's wonderful in soups. Any type of vegetable that could go into a soup, you can use the zucchini in place of it. In fact, I did an Italian wedding soup and I put it in that. Just did that a few days ago. And when we come back, we'll be cutting up our tomatoes. This is our tomato. I've already washed these, and I like to cut the end of the tomato off first. And even though it's a sharp knife, it was a little bit difficult to cut through that. This is a part that you're not going to want to eat because it's got a lot of skin to it, so I'm going to put that over here. I do have a serrated knife, which has the blade with indentations in it, and it actually cuts through the skin of vegetables a lot easier. You can see how easy that is. And you've probably seen those commercials on TV years ago if you're as old as me, the Ginsu knife that can cut through leather and shoes and metal and rope and keep on cutting through the tomato later on. Same concept with this serrated knife. Nice 1/4-inch slices. And we're going to do about 3 medium tomatoes for this process. My favorite tomato is a beefsteak tomato. A lot of times in the summer, you can go to farm festivals in different communities and buy the tomatoes they have there. They have heirloom tomatoes too. A lot better flavor that way. Depends on what's in season. And now we move on to the eggs. Some people like to take an egg and hold it between their finger and their thumb and hit it on the side of the bowl and then just use one hand to crack the egg. I personally don't like to do that. It's not about speed for this, it's about doing it so you don't get the shell down inside with the eggs. So I'm going to move these off to the side. I'm going to use this bowl to put my eggs in after I've cracked them. And your eggs already come pre-washed at the store. That's part of the manufacturing process. So the outside of this is clean. And this dish, serves 8 people. So I've got 8 eggs that I'm doing here. Each person's going to have the equivalent of 1 egg for their serving. I'm going to whisk these. Notice how I'm angling the bowl so that it goes down to the corner of the bowl as I'm doing this. If you have one of the stick blenders at home, I recommend using that. You can get more air mixed in with the egg and it's going to be a more fluffy mixture when the dish is done. Okay, next I'm going to clean and sanitize my cutting board so that I can process the basil. Basil, it's a wonderful herb, has a nice aroma to it. And these are really big examples of fresh basil. You can usually find smaller basil at the store in containers. You can also use dry, but the ratio is 3 to 1, meaning that the dry herbs you're going to use less. You'll use more of the fresh herbs. It's just part of the process when it's dehydrated. So we've got 1/2 cup of fresh basil chopped. In order to process this, you don't want to eat the stem. You just want the leaves of the basil. We're just going to take these off. You've probably heard of pesto too. Basil is one of the key ingredients in pesto. Or you could even use other herbs too. If you're making pesto, you could use spinach if you wanted to. My favorite pesto is sun-dried tomato pesto. Okay, we've got a lot here, so I'm going to process half of it at a time. There's a French term called chiffonade, and what it actually means is to take a rag and to tear it into strips or to cut it into strips. And that's what we're going to do with these leaves. You're going to want to roll it up tightly, like that. Then take your knife and with your hand curled back with the claw effect, so your thumb's not underneath the blade or your fingers, you can then cut through the basil like a chiffonade. And you can see the effect. I've got a rag that's been cut into strips. Then I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to work with the tip of the blade down on my cutting board, holding that down with my palm. I'm going to use the heel of my knife and I'm going to go through the basil like this. We want to get it into a fine mesh type of effect at this point. And I just keep working it back and forth. This is a lot of basil in this dish. 1/2 cup. And that works out to 2 tablespoons dried. Now it looks like I actually have more than enough there, so I'm just going to put a 1/2 cup worth into my bowl for my recipe. That should do fine. Now that we have our items prepped, we're going to start the preparation of the dish. I've got a large skillet on the stove over medium-high heat. I'm going to add a tablespoon of olive oil. I actually have a blend of olive oil and canola oil. You can use either one at home. Or if you just have a vegetable oil at home, you can use that too. I'm just swirling this around in the pan so it coats the bottom evenly. We're going to add our onions that we prepared. And our zucchini. And while those are sauteing, we have our egg mixture and our basil. We're going to combine these two together. And some salt. I have 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I use kosher salt for this dish. You can use table salt if that's what you have, but you want to use half of that because it's a finer grind. The pepper, I have a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper ground up. And red pepper flakes. These are 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. If you want to use cayenne pepper, you can use that too. If you have just hot sauce in your fridge at home, you can even add that. It depends on what type of flavor profile you want as far as the heat in your dish. You could even skip that ingredient if you wanted to. We're just going to whisk that together. And we'll let that set off to the side. Oh, we got to add our cheese to it too. We're going to saute these veggies until they're tender. It's going to take about 15 to 20 minutes to do this process. And when we come back, I'll show you how to combine these into a baking dish, and we'll put it in the oven, and then we'll be eating breakfast. And we're back. You can see I've got my zucchini and my onions in here sauteing. The onions are starting to turn a little bit translucent, kind of like if you had sweated them. We're not looking for caramelization at this point. And the zucchini itself has started to turn color too. It's getting a little bit softer with just a little al dente bite to it. We're going to put this dish into a 400-degree oven and cook it anyway, so they're going to cook a little bit more with that process. I'm going to take this off the heat. And I'm going to spray this 9x13 casserole baking dish with nonstick cooking spray. Make sure you hit the sides of the pan too so that everything comes out when you go to serve it. And we're going to transfer our zucchini and onions to this dish. We're going to take the tomatoes that we sliced earlier, and we're just going to layer these on top. It's called a shingle effect when you take one tomato and lay it over the top of the other one as you go along. I'm shingling these like I'm making a roof. The color of the green with the red tomato is outstanding. And it looks like the 3 medium tomatoes was a perfect amount for this dish too. Now we're going to take our egg mixture and the cheese and the basil, and we're going to pour this over the top of our casserole. And it's going to soak down in through all the nooks and crannies. Kind of spread your cheese around so that it can brown up on top as it bakes. At 400 degrees, I've already got our oven preheated, ready for this step. We're going to place this into the oven. And it's going to cook for 30 minutes. And you want to watch it during the cooking process to make sure that it doesn't brown up and start to burn. Ovens cook at different temperatures, even though it'll say 500 or 400 on the oven for what it's cooking at. It may not actually be that on the inside. You can always turn the temperature down if you need to, or turn the temperature up. You could also take it out at any point, put some aluminum foil over the top of it so that it doesn't continue the browning process, and put it back in to finish it up that way. And when we come back, we'll see what we've got. Thanks. And we're back. It's time to take our zucchini egg tomato bake out of the oven. I'm going to put on some pot holders. Ooh, it looks wonderful. It's bubbling. The cheese has turned a golden brown on top. You can see the basil and the tomatoes. Can't wait to eat that. This dish, I said earlier that you could eat it for breakfast, but you can also eat it for lunch or dinner. And I'm going to tell you some tips too. You could use cayenne pepper instead of the crushed red pepper flakes that we used. I had mentioned that earlier. You could also add some minced garlic and in with the onions and the zucchini when you saute that for more flavor. You can use any types of tomatoes that you like. I know I said I like beefsteak, but there's also Roma or cherry tomatoes that you could use. You can substitute other veggies if you have them available. There may be broccoli, onions, spinach, kale, peppers, shredded carrots, mushrooms, diced regular or sweet potatoes in it. And in place of mozzarella cheese, you can use any other cheese that you have available too. And I like smoked Gouda in a lot of my dishes, so that would be one that I would go with. And also the secret tip is to make a double batch, and then you can freeze leftovers and have it freezed in portion sizes that you need for your family that's going to be eating too. So until we meet again, eat healthy, my friends.
Hi, my name is Amy Shea, and I'm nutrition faculty with the College of Nursing. And today I wanted to talk about the nutritional aspects of this recipe that Chef Mike just shared with you guys. First, I wanted to talk about the benefits of choosing eggs as a cheap source of protein. So as you can see on the slide, one egg is about 15 cents. So it is a really high quality protein for not a lot of money. So it's an affordable source of protein. I think eggs can be a great addition to healthful eating on a budget. When we think about eggs and some of the recommendations surrounding eggs, there's been a lot of confusion in the past as far as why or whether or not we should choose eggs and if they're a healthy choice. So I wanted to take some time to address that and the recommendations for how many eggs we should be consuming on a regular basis. As you can see on the slide, eggs actually have a really amazing nutritional profile. They provide 8 essential nutrients and again are a good high quality source of protein. They are high in cholesterol though, that is accurate, and the cholesterol is found in the egg yolk. But what we know is that dietary cholesterol does not really affect blood cholesterol. So if you think about the cholesterol levels that you get when you go to the doctor, they measure your LDL and your HDL cholesterol. And LDL cholesterol is the cholesterol that we want to be low. So that's the unhealthy blood cholesterol. And eggs don't raise that cholesterol level in the blood. So even though eggs have dietary cholesterol, so we eat cholesterol from eggs, they don't actually impact our blood cholesterol the same way other sources of fat do. So I think eggs can be a really healthy choice. And as you can see on the slide, the American Heart Association has outlined specific recommendations regarding eggs. So for healthy individuals, consumption of 1 egg a day is perfectly acceptable in a heart-healthy diet. For older individuals, actually maybe more eggs might be beneficial because older individuals do need additional protein. And eggs tend to be an easy source of protein for older individuals to choose. So I think that's another good point about eggs, that older individuals could maybe consume up to 2 eggs per day. And then for people who are vegetarians or avoiding meat or other animal foods, but they do eat eggs, again, this would be a good source of protein for those people to choose, and they may be able to consume more eggs in their diet. So hopefully that makes sense as far as the recommendations about eggs and heart health. Then lastly, I just wanted to share this information again about eating healthfully on a budget. And as you can see, 1 egg does provide a lot of good nutrition for not a lot of cost. But think about all these other foods that you can add into your diet. So building a nutrient-dense diet on a budget is possible. And so look at the cost of a lot of these different foods. You can see lentils, brown rice, carrots, corn, sweet potatoes, broccoli, bananas, frozen berries, applesauce, all great choices that can be included affordably on a healthy diet.